Before you reveal a single intention to the world, understand this: a man without money is a man without leverage, and a man without leverage is prey. In this video, we expose the psychological trap that destroys ambitious minds: the urge to declare plans before you possess the power to enforce them. In the shadows of every empire, great or small, lies a truth most people refuse to confront: intentions are worthless without force, and dreams are fragile without capital. Money, though despised by the sentimental and feared by the weak, is the only silent ally that never betrays its master. It grants you the freedom to move in silence, the authority to choose your battles, and the insulation to shield your ambitions from the meddling hands of envious men. As you walk through the labyrinth of human nature, remember, every word you speak, every plan you reveal is a weapon placed into the hands of others. And without money, you are unarmed. Tonight, we study how to acquire wealth not for luxury, but for dominion, secrecy, and strategic advantage, the true currency of power. Power, in its purest form, is never declared. It is revealed only when its foundation is already unshakable. And you, who aspire to rise above the mediocre ambitions of ordinary men, must understand one principle before all others: never expose your intentions before you possess the leverage to defend them. This is why money, cold, silent, and indifferent, is your first fortress. Consider the rulers of old. They did not broadcast their pursuits. They concealed them beneath layers of formality and ritual, waiting until their treasuries were full, their alliances secured, and their enemies distracted. Only then did they move. And when they did, the world mistook preparation for destiny. But tell me, what would have become of them had they announced their desires when they were still begging for resources? Their rivals would have swarmed like vultures. You face the same danger today, though your battlefield is quieter. It lies in conversations with friends, relatives, colleagues. Those who smile at you, yet study you like merchants inspecting a coin. When you speak of grand plans without the means to actualize them, you invite judgment, resistance, and subtle sabotage. People despise ambition they cannot control, and they fear intentions they cannot predict. Do you think the world rewards openness? Only the knave believe that speaking your goals brings them to life. In truth, it brings them to death. Words are signals. Signals attract observers. Observers become competitors. Competitors become obstacles, all before you have accumulated even a fraction of the leverage needed to ensure your success. Look at the young man who loudly announces he will start a business. He receives advice he never asked for, doubt disguised as concern, and mockery dressed as wisdom. Slowly, the pressure crushes him. He abandons his mission, not because it was impossible, but because he revealed it before he fortified it. Contrast him with the one who works in silence. He gathers resources, learns the terrain, builds connections, studies weaknesses. When he finally reveals his move, it's not a dream. It's a completed structure, and while others scramble to interpret it, he has already advanced to his next position. History repeats this pattern endlessly. The Visconti family, before seizing Milan, cloaked their ambitions under a veil of piety and public service. They expanded their wealth while pretending to be humble administrators. By the time their intentions were understood, it was too late. Wealth had fueled soldiers, soldiers had shaped authority, and authority had silenced opposition. Such outcomes were not accidents. They were the product of strategic patience powered by financial strength. Ask yourself, when those around you learn what you intend to do they help you or quietly prepare to outrun you? Human nature prefers advantage over camaraderie. Even allies will compete if the opportunity is tempting enough. This is why you must speak less and accumulate more. Money buys you silence, privacy, and time. It shields you from the premature scrutiny of others. It allows you to plan without interference, to maneuver without witnesses, and to strike without warning. Most importantly, it allows you to appear weaker than you are, a tactic that has toppled kings and rescued dying empires. Imagine a general who reveals his strategy before securing his supply lines. His enemies adjust, adapt, and respond before he marches. You commit the same mistake when you announce your goals without the resources to make them inevitable. But when your coffers are full, when your skills are sharpened, when your position is secured, then revelation becomes a weapon. Not before. So learn to treasure your silence. Guard your intentions with the same vigilance you would guard gold. Let your progress speak only when it is undeniable, and let every unveiled action be one that cannot be challenged or reversed. This truth applies whether you seek power in business, relationships, or society, for every arena rewards the prepared and punishes the exposed always. Authority is a strange creature. It speaks without raising its voice. It commands without lifting its hand, and the majority of people obey it without ever questioning why. Yet here is the truth most refuse to see. Money is one of the purest forms of silent authority, a force that shapes human behavior long before a word is spoken. You may not like this reality, but if you wish to rise, you must accept it, and then use it. Ask yourself, why do people listen more attentively to the man who arrives with wealth than to the one who arrives with ideas? Ideas inspire admiration, wealth inspires compliance. One invites discussion, the other imposes direction, and if you seek to influence the world, compliance is worth far more than admiration. History offers abundant lessons. Consider the Medici family, who ruled Florence not through divine right or military conquest, but through the quiet, invisible power of gold. Their wealth allowed them to pick leaders like pieces on a board, to elevate allies, to weaken rivals, and to create an illusion of benevolence while exercising absolute control. They rarely needed to threaten. They only needed to fund, and funding speaks louder than proclamations. You live in a world no different. People pretend to value morality, intelligence, and charisma. But watch what happens when someone enters the room with financial gravity. The atmosphere shifts, postures straighten, voices soften, opinions adjust. It is not respect, it is instinct. Humans have always gravitated toward whoever can provide resources, protection, or opportunity. And money, unlike charm or personality, guarantees all three. Yet the greatest power of wealth is not what it buys, but what it implies. Before you say a single word, people begin constructing a story about you. They assume competence. They assume discipline. They assume capability. They project strength onto you even if you remain silent. This projection is authority in its purest form, the authority others create in their own minds. Isn't it easier to influence someone when they already trust your judgment? When they believe your decisions rest on a foundation of success? When they think you have more to lose than they do? Their defenses weaken before you even make your move. You have seen this dynamic yourself. Consider how employers listen more intently to high-earning executives. Consider how friends seek advice from those who appear financially stable. Consider how strangers behave more cautiously around someone who signals wealth. None of this is random. It is the psychological weight of perceived consequence. People hesitate to challenge those they believe can afford retaliation, economic, social, or strategic. This is why wealth commands respect even from those who despise the wealthy. They obey not out of loyalty, but out of calculation. They fear exclusion. They crave opportunity. They respect what they cannot easily replace. Now observe the subtle manipulator, the individual with just enough wealth to create the illusion of abundance. He does not boast. He does not flaunt. He simply demonstrates capability in small, controlled ways, a decisive purchase, an unexpected favor, a calculated show of independence. He uses money not to impress but to shape perception, and in shaping perception, he shapes behavior. His authority is derived from implication, not display. This is the art you must master. Authority is not only about the power others believe you possess. It is about the power you gain internally. Wealth grants psychological freedom. The freedom to act without begging, to decide without consulting, to move without explaining. It removes the chains of dependence that make most people fearful, hesitant, and easily manipulated. Tell me, how confidently can a man speak if he knows one financial setback will destroy him? How boldly can he negotiate if he has no alternative? How fiercely can he protect his ambitions if every decision is a gamble between survival and collapse? Without financial strength, courage becomes reckless. With it, silence becomes influence. So understand this: money makes your voice heavier, even when you choose not to use it. It turns your presence into a statement. It transforms your decisions into commands. And in a world where perception governs reality, that is the foundation of true control. Modesty, when wielded by the ambitious, becomes a weapon more precise than any blade. It softens the gaze of enemies, quiets suspicion, and invites underestimation. And you, if you seek to rise in a world overflowing with envy and rivalry, must learn the art of appearing harmless while cultivating power in silence. For nothing disarms the watchful more effectively than the illusion that you pose no threat. Consider this truth: people fear the bold, but they ignore the meek. They prepare defenses against the assertive, yet leave their gates wide open to those who seem content with little. This is why the wise conceal their hunger behind a mask of modesty. Not humility in character, but humility in presentation, a strategic veil that permits growth without interference. History offers countless examples. Think of Augustus, who inherited a republic wary of war. He did not declare himself emperor outright, though he held the legions, the treasury, and the loyalty of Rome. Instead, he spoke softly, presented himself as a servant of the state, and pretended to restore old liberties. His modesty was a mirage. While senators praised his restraint, he quietly absorbed every meaningful power. By the time they realized the truth, Rome had already knelt. This pattern repeats in every century. The greatest rulers rarely arrive with trumpets declaring their dominance. They arrive with calm faces, gentle tones, and unthreatening gestures. Only their results reveal what their words concealed. Now reflect on your own life. How often have you seen ambitious individuals sabotage themselves by showcasing their desires too loudly? They draw attention, provoke jealousy, and awaken rivals who otherwise would have remained asleep. A young man declares he will dominate an industry. Immediately, competitors harden their positions. Mentors grow wary. Potential allies withdraw. He has exposed his throat before sharpening his sword. Contrast this with the one who moves quietly. He downplays his achievements. He hides his expanding network behind casual conversation. He acts uninterested in opportunities he is already preparing to seize. While others waste time defending their egos, he prepares his ascent. When he finally reveals his position, it is not a declaration. It is a result already cemented. Do you see the psychological elegance of this tactic? People compete hardest with they perceive as equals or threats. They relax around those who seem small. By appearing modest, you remove yourself from their mental battlefield. You free yourself to operate unchallenged. Even in everyday relationships, the strategic illusion of modesty reshapes behavior. Imagine an employee who quietly masters every task yet avoids drawing attention. His colleagues underestimate him. They gossip freely, reveal strategies, expose their weaknesses. Meanwhile, he takes notes. When promotion season arrives, his preparedness eclipses everyone else's noise. Or consider the negotiator who pretends not to grasp the full value of what he wants. His opponent grows confident, even arrogant. That arrogance blinds him. And when the modest negotiator makes his final move, the opponent realizes too late that he was outmaneuvered by someone he assumed was naive. This tactic works because it mirrors human nature. People cannot resist underestimating others. They believe modesty signals harmlessness. They assume quiet means weak. They forget that the deadliest predators are the ones who stalk silently through tall grass, striking only when escape is impossible. But remember, this is not about lying. It is about concealment. Concealing your ambition. Concealing your momentum. Concealing the true scale of your preparation. You appear small so you can grow large without resistance. You appear disinterested so attention drifts elsewhere. You appear satisfied so others reveal their vulnerabilities. And while they sleep, you build. While they boast, you plan. While they compete loudly, you accumulate silently. This is the strategy that has shaped kings, merchants, generals, and modern moguls alike. It is the art of allowing others to underestimate you so thoroughly that when your true power emerges, it feels inevitable rather than threatening. But modesty is only half the strategy. To wield it effectively, you must also understand how options, the choices others lack, grant you absolute control. Only then will your silence transform into dominance that reshapes every path others believed you would follow. Options are the currency of freedom. They are the invisible armor that protects you from manipulation, the silent engine that powers influence, and the decisive factor that separates those who command from those who obey. When you possess options, you cannot be cornered. When others lack them, they cannot refuse you. And if you intend to rise in a world shaped by hidden power struggles, you must learn to create, guard, and multiply your options as if your life depends on them. Because in a strategic sense, it does. Consider the fate of those with no alternatives. They cling, they beg, they compromise their dignity for scraps of opportunity. They become predictable, and predictability is the raw material of manipulation. Tell me, how easily can you control a man whose survival depends on one employer, one relationship, one source of income, one fragile dream? You simply threaten the lone branch he clings to, and his will collapses. Now compare him to the one who has several routes of escape, multiple alliances, diversified income, and layered contingencies. How do you pressure such a person? How do you coerce someone who can walk away at any moment? Their value rises precisely because they cannot be cornered. Their silence becomes unsettling. Their decisions become decisive. Their presence demands respect. This is why options create a psychological advantage long before a single strategic move is made. History's greatest tacticians understood this instinctively. Consider the Venetian Republic. Surrounded by rivals, it survived centuries not by brute force, but by maintaining multiple trade alliances, diverse naval routes, and overlapping political ties. When one door closed, another opened. When one empire threatened them, another defended them. Their web of options made them too valuable and too unpredictable to destroy. You can apply the same principle to your personal ascent. Imagine you are negotiating for a higher position. If this job is your only path, you accept whatever is offered. You become pliable. But if you have other opportunities waiting quietly, if you have cultivated skills that attract competitors, then your tone changes. You negotiate not from fear, but from leverage. You do not plead, you choose. And choosing is power. Options alter your psychology as much as they alter your circumstances. With options, your mind becomes calm, your decisions sharpen, your patience deepens. Without them, every step feels dangerous, every request feels desperate, every delay feels threatening. This is why those without alternatives often sabotage themselves. They operate from panic rather than strategy. Even in relationships, options determine who holds influence. A person who believes they cannot replace their partner becomes submissive. They hide their dissatisfaction, silence their opinions, tolerate disrespect. Yet the person who knows they can walk away at any moment speaks truthfully, behaves confidently, and demands better treatment. Their partner senses this freedom, even subconsciously, and adjusts their behavior. Options reshape dynamics without a word spoken. But creating options requires discipline. It demands that you cultivate skills instead of excuses, connections instead of attachments, and savings instead of impulsive spending. It requires you to think years ahead while others think days ahead. It requires you to build quietly so no one notices the doors you are unlocking. Think of the strategist who prepares multiple escape routes before entering battle. His enemies march forward with only one plan. He advances with 4. Who is more likely to survive? Who is more likely to win? The one who has rehearsed alternatives in silence while appearing to follow a single path. People will try to trap you in obligations, dependencies, and emotional contracts. They will offer comfort to keep you weak, security to keep you predictable, and approval to keep you obedient. You must resist all of it. Comfort is the enemy of options. Predictability is the ally of manipulation. Approval is the cheapest leash a person can wear. Your goal is not to appear powerful. Your goal is to be unbound. Because when you have options, you cannot be intimidated. When you have options, you cannot be rushed. When you have options, you cannot be bought cheaply. And when you cannot be controlled, others must negotiate with you instead of command you. But options, once gained, must be protected with the same ferocity as a fortress under siege. For in the next segment, you will discover why envy, interference, and silent saboteurs emerge the moment others sense that you are becoming difficult to control, and how to defend your rise against them. Envy is the shadow that follows every rising figure, and interference is the hand that reaches out from that shadow to pull him down. If you believe people will celebrate your ascent simply because they smile in your presence, you are mistaken. Human nature does not applaud what it cannot control. It resents it. And as you begin to rise, quietly or boldly, you will discover that the greatest threats to your progress rarely arrive as open enemies. They come disguised as friends, advisors, mentors, and concerned observers whose true motivation is subtle fear, the fear that you may surpass them. Ask yourself this: how many people in your life truly want you to succeed without condition? How many are capable of seeing you grow without feeling smaller themselves? How many can witness your ambition without instinctively trying to limit it? The answers are few. And this is where your understanding of envy becomes essential. Envy is not always loud. It does not always show itself through insults or confrontation. More often, it is quiet, polite, and wrapped in a tone of caution. Are you sure this is a good idea? Maybe wait a little. Don't aim too high. These are not warnings. They are psychological anchors. They weigh down your momentum under the disguise of care. Look back at history, and you will see this pattern repeating itself like a ritual. Caesar was not betrayed by distant enemies, but by those who dined at his table. Joan of Arc was not condemned by foreign armies, but by her own countrymen. Galileo was not silenced by outsiders, but by scholars whose egos trembled at his discoveries. The closer people are to your ambition, the more they feel threatened by it. Why? Because your rise becomes a mirror. It reflects what they could have been, what they failed to pursue, and what they abandoned out of fear. Your ambition exposes their stagnation. Your progress exposes their excuses. And while few will admit this openly, their envy drives them to interfere, not always aggressively, but persistently. You must learn to detect the small signs, the sudden shift in tone when you share an achievement, the faint tension when you discuss your plans, the advice that seems protective but always pushes you toward playing smaller, the laughter that carries an undertone of dismissal. These are warnings that someone has begun to see you not as an ally, but as a threat to their psychological comfort. And understand this clearly. People do not sabotage out of malice alone. They sabotage because your progress unsettles the hierarchy they rely on. If you grow too much, they cannot predict you. If you gain too much, they cannot manage you. If you become too independent, they cannot influence you. So they try to slow you just enough to keep you within reach. One of the most common forms of interference is distraction. Someone introduces you to unnecessary problems, irrelevant drama, or time-consuming obligations. They may not even realize their motives. But subconsciously, they want your attention tied to anything that keeps you from fully stepping into your ascent. Another form is discouragement masked as rationality. They present doubt as wisdom. They label your ambition as recklessness. They call your goals unrealistic not because they are impossible, but because they themselves would never dare attempt them. And then comes the most dangerous form, quiet resistance. These individuals never openly oppose you. They simply withhold support, delay decisions, leak information, or subtly undermine your confidence. A gesture here, a remark there, a small word placed in the right ear. You feel it, but you cannot prove it. And that is what makes it powerful. So how do you defend yourself? You protect your ambitions with silence. You protect your progress by revealing it only after it becomes irreversible. You protect your mind by recognizing that envy is a law of nature, not a personal failure. And most importantly, you protect your path by building private strength, skills, resources, alliances that no saboteur can disrupt. Because once people sense that you are becoming difficult to influence, their envy transforms from subtle annoyance into active interference. And if you are unprepared, their quiet sabotage can slow you more effectively than any open attack. But you are not here to be slowed. You are here to rise with clarity and cold strategy. Revelation is a luxury reserved for the powerful. Only the strong can afford honesty, because honesty without leverage is a confession, not a strategy. And you, if you intend to rise without being devoured by those who fear your ascent, must master the final principle. Reveal your true intentions only when your position is fortified beyond challenge. Until then, concealment is not deception. It's self-preservation. Ask yourself, why do rulers announce reforms only after securing the loyalty of their armies? Why do kings declare succession only after eliminating rivals? Why do successful generals unveil their plans only when every escape route has already been sealed? Because intentions, revealed too early, become weaknesses, but intentions revealed at the right moment become commands. Think of the legendary rise of the Tokugawa shogunate in Japan. Tokugawa Ieyasu played the game of patience with divine precision. For decades, he presented himself as a loyal ally, a stabilizing force, a man uninterested in domination. But quietly, he gathered land, wealth, allies, and military strength. When he finally revealed his true ambition, to unify and rule, he did so at the Battle of Sekigahara, where victory had already been engineered long before swords clashed. His intentions became public only when resistance no longer mattered. That is the essence of strategic revelation, disclosure without risk. Consider how this principle applies to your own life. Suppose you have a plan to change careers, build a business, leave a failing relationship, or dismantle a toxic environment. If you reveal it while your foundation is weak, others gain the opportunity to sabotage you. They can shame you, block you, outmaneuver you, or persuade you that your vision is unrealistic. But if you reveal it when the pieces are already aligned, when decisions have been made, when alternatives exist, when you can walk away without fear, then your revelation becomes unstoppable. People are far more accepting of what they cannot prevent. This is why silence in the early stages is not passivity. It is preparation. You are not withholding information, you are sharpening your dagger. You are not avoiding the world, you are positioning yourself above its reach. Watch how manipulators operate. The experienced negotiator never reveals his bottom line until the opponent has already closed off their own options. The cunning leader never discloses long-term plans until allies depend on him too deeply to defect. The shrewd investor makes his move only when the market cannot shift quickly enough to counter him. Their silence is not secrecy, it is timing. Reveal too soon and you invite attack. Reveal too late and you miss opportunity. Reveal at the precise moment when your strength surpasses all possible resistance, and your intentions transform from risky statements into immutable declarations. Even in everyday social dynamics, the power of timing shapes outcomes. Imagine someone who admits their ambitions to a group of insecure peers. Each listener begins calculating how to slow them, how to pull them back into the comfort of mediocrity. But imagine that same person staying quiet, advancing steadily, building silently, and then presenting their success as a completed fact rather than a developing idea. The reaction changes instantly. People adapt to what is, not to what might be. Once the result is undeniable, they pretend they supported you from the beginning. Human nature bends itself around outcomes, not promises. This is why rulers issue decrees, not proposals. Why conquerors announce victories, not intentions. Why the powerful speak only when their words are already reality in disguise. Understand this: the world respects what is finished, not what is forming. Your dream is vulnerable while it is still a blueprint. But once it becomes a structure, others are forced to navigate around it. So you must cultivate strength first, skill first, wealth first, position first, alternatives first. And when all of these align like stones in a fortress wall, then, and only then, do you reveal your intention. Not as a request, not as a hope, but as a fact that others must adjust to or be crushed beneath. Reveal your ambition when your rise is no longer stoppable. Reveal your strategy when your rivals have no counters left to play. Reveal your purpose when your leverage makes their disagreement irrelevant, because the moment you choose to unveil yourself will determine whether you spark opposition or command obedience. And now that you understand the art of timing, prepare for the final truth. What you reveal is only half the game. What you conceal even after victory is where true power lies. In the end, power rarely announces itself. It slips into a person's mind quietly, like a whisper they mistake for their own thoughts. That is the essence of control without detection. You do not push. You guide. You do not command. You shape the environment until obedience feels like the other person's idea. Influence is most effective when invisible. And the moment they believe they're acting freely, you've already won. Ask yourself, how many decisions in your life were truly yours? And how many were planted by someone who understood these principles better than you? Remember this, the strongest strategist is the one no one suspects. The one who smiles while rearranging the battlefield behind closed doors. The one who moves minds the way a puppeteer moves strings, carefully, precisely, and without ever being seen. Now tell me in the comments, which part of this strategy struck you the deepest? Subscribe for more psychological and Machiavellian insights. And if you know someone who needs this knowledge, share the video. Power spreads fastest when carried by willing hands.